welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks, and I'm joined by the EAFC to my FIFA. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to you, Ryan.
Justin, what a weekend of football, eh? Like the sycamore gap tree, I'm sad it's no longer with us.
Absolutely. Devastating news there. But a good weekend of football. Some big away wins as well. It's incredible. But yeah, even bigger news. Yeah, the sycamore gap tree has now left us. I've never seen it, never even knew it existed before this week. And like this weekend, had no idea it was coming.
Once again, I'm glad that we've gone completely off topic at the start of this episode, but I'm absolutely with you there because I did know it existed. I have seen it before, but I've seen it more times in the past few days than I think I've ever seen it in my lifetime. It has been something else, but I tell you what, the memes have been something else.
Yeah, just the Eddie Howe context is quite a funny side step. Obviously, it's Premier League, so we won't talk about it too much. But yeah, it has been an amusing situation in what has been, in a very devastating, frustrating bit of news for those up north.
Yes, completely and utterly devastating. We won't joke about it anymore. Welcome to the number one championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a jam-packed weekend of results for us to talk about here on the Second Tier. So we'll go through all the games from the past weekend, talk about what it means for each of those involved, talk about some of the news from the past few days. Don't know if you may have seen this, but there was a statement that was put out by Sheffield Wednesday's owner over the past few days. We might have a little chat about that in the news, as well as a few other bits. Talk about the polls that we've put out on Twitter, and then we'll finish off with Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight right at the end of the show. So we'll begin with probably the most surprising results of the weekend. Southampton 1, Leeds United... Southampton 3, Leeds United 1. 3-word review from Mike for Southampton, back in business. I mean, let's be honest, this went completely against the form book, didn't it? I was watching this game, Justin, and as you know, I was backing a Leeds win, as revealed in my midweek predictions. They conceded before I even sat down, and I thought to myself, that's all right, they'll probably get back into it. And it was just Leeds domination, then Southampton scored. And then again, Leeds domination, and then Southampton scored. And then it was pretty much game over by that point. So they just seemed to go forward 3 times and scored with their first 3 shots on target. But fair play to Southampton. I never saw this result coming. And despite what I just said about Leeds dominating for large parts, I was impressed. And the question is, Justin, are you still on your high horse about Southampton after this?
I got on my high horse and rode off weeks ago, so no worries about that. I think the key takeout is that Southampton made Leeds like Southampton of a few weeks ago. I think that's the key thing here. And as I say, the high horse thing, I think that's done and dusted now, because this game should mark a turning point for Southampton, because this was the best, most convincing performance I've watched of them this season. They were clinical, they had purpose in possession, and they had that cutting edge going forwards that I've been desperate for the entire campaign to date. It wasn't tippy-tappy, it was aggressive, it was ruthless, and it genuinely was a nice change to watch in this team. It was more direct and how they transitioned the balls. And there's a reason why Leeds looked so blunt and poor, especially in that first half. It's because Southampton didn't allow them to hit them on the break. They closed up those midfield positions, they shut up shop in some aspects, reduced the space, and looked really confident and exceptional in and out of possession. And better yet, they were more pragmatic in possession. They weren't taking unnecessary risks. They were going long when they needed to. They were utilising Kevin Bazuna's really good distribution. This was a really good performance, and I'll sit here and I'll say it. They clicked. It worked, and if they carry on with this same output, they're going to do well this season. It's simple as that.
Yeah. And we said it would take a while for Russell Martin to get to grips with this Southampton side. I wouldn't declare that he's done it after one good result, but there was a lot of evidence that he's close to working it out. Despite Leeds dominating for large chunks of this game, they were so much sturdier at the back. I can't recall Leeds having too many chances, and it just meant that every time Leeds went forward, they were just running into this door, which was the Southampton back line. And then going forwards, they were more direct, but it worked because they had the quality to make it count. And players in the final third were more willing to be a bit more expressive and take risks and make things happen. Carlos Alcaraz coming back into the team was a big help with that, because he's an unbelievable player. Adam Armstrong was excellent. He mainly played on the right wing when he was scoring goals for fun at Blackburn, so I imagine he'll stay there instead of more centrally, which is where he's played so far. Southampton have an excellent team with an abundance of talent. I think they recruited very well over the summer. It's just needed knitting together. And I always thought that, and still think, Russell Martin will do that in time. Hopefully this is the start of that happening. And if this is anything to go by, then Southampton will be the team that many people expected at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's quite right. I think this is the game that, like I said, it should mark the turning point for Southampton, because that is a benchmark performance that a lot of teams will have. Leeds have had one, Leicester have had one. I think this is Southampton's, because not only have they looked very confident in and out of possession, it's the most assured they've looked. I know they conceded a really, really sloppy goal. That's the main thing that disappointed me about this game, is how sloppy that goal was. But for 99% of that game, they were near faultless. They were good. And they made a really good informed Leeds team with an incredibly talented attack, probably one of the most, or the most talented attack in the division, look really blunt and without any idea of what to how to break Southampton down. So yeah, there's so many positives, and as I say, there's so many individuals there to speak of who had really good games, which we've not been able to do for a large number of weeks now.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and this performance looked completely different to the Southampton that we have seen over the past, ever since the international break, really, hasn't it? Billy's 3-word review for Leeds: back down to earth. The ter was, apostrophe T apostrophe earth, so still 3 words. From a Leeds perspective, I can't pick out too many things that I particularly think went wrong, despite being 3-0 down at half time. I don't think they played particularly badly. Do you think this was just a blip for them, or something more serious?
No, definitely a blip. I would have expected, and many others would have expected, Leeds to walk over Southampton going into this game. So I think the fast start maybe took them by surprise, but also the goals were examples of some really poor defending. First Adam Armstrong got, what's Liam Cooper doing? He's halfway down to the ferry port in Southampton. He's going further south. He doesn't need to. He's so far ahead of his back line. It's ridiculous. And then the Adam Armstrong, the second Adam Armstrong goal, he sits down Sam Byram in a one-on-one, and Meslier arguably could have done better with both those goals. So I think it was just a case of they made some poor errors individually, and that set the tone of the game. And after that, it's a big old mountain to climb, and Southampton were resilient, and Leeds had no answer. So I expect Leeds to pick up. I think this just is, as you say, it is just a blip. They won't repeat that sort of performance. I'm confident of that.
Yeah, I think it was just a blip. I will admit, I'm not sure what Jamie Shackleton at right back was all about when Luke Ayling's on the bench. I get that he's a homegrown lad and is very versatile, but I don't think Jamie Shackleton should be starting games for Leeds, even if he has done so a few times already this season. I'm not sure Liam Cooper should be first choice anymore. Leeds have better options than him in my book at this stage. Can't say I was too impressed by Glenn Kamara either. So they're just a few I would pick out, but look, Southampton have a much more talented squad than their results suggest, so it's by no means the end of the world for Leeds losing to the Southampton team, even though they have been in really, really poor form. It's just about getting those Millwall and Watford performances and making them a more regular thing, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because if that happens, then this will just be a blip, and Leeds will go on their merry way to challenging right at the top of the Championship this season. I imagine Sheffield Wednesday fans have had better Fridays than the last one. After their owner put out a lengthy statement, they also lost 3-0 to Sunderland. Wednesday now have the joint worst start after 9 games in Championship history. If they fail to win against West Brom on Tuesday, it'll be Wednesday's worst start in club history. Really was a pitiful performance from them, wasn't it? We'll avoid talking about Wednesday here, Justin, because we're going to be talking about them at length in the news, but it was a really, really poor showing from them. Sunderland are flying, though, up to 4th in the table, 4 wins from 5. SCH with a 3-word review that sums it up incredibly well. Jack Raymond Clarke. And we have got to praise that man again, Justin. Jack Clarke, 2 goals here for him. He actually scored more goals in this game than he had touches in the box, which I thought was quite an interesting one. But he really has come on leaps and bounds this calendar year, hasn't he?
Yeah, without doubt. And I think that's Tony Mowbray. Tony Mowbray knows how to get the best out of players. We've seen it with Ben Brereton Diaz. We've seen it with Adam Armstrong. He makes big assets, but that's putting the credit in Tony Mowbray's court, which I don't think is hugely fair because Jack Clarke he's always had ability. He's just needed someone to get it out of him. But he's a fantastic individual. He just glides around effortlessly, doesn't he? He's like a group of swans coming into land on a river. So elegant, so beautiful. I don't know what you call a group of swans. Is it a gang? Because that's what they are intimidating.
No, a gaggle? Is it a gaggle? I don't know, but I get your point.
Yeah, that's besides the point. But he's clinical as well. He scored his both shots and target in this game, and he reminds me of how wingers used to play. And I hate that level of conversation because it's it's a bit of the good old days, which is bollocks. But his ability to come inside, find space, score from outside the box, a bit like Bukayo Saka, it's a touch of the old school winger. Your Robert Pires, your Ian Robbins. It's really exciting to watch, and more of the same. And he's going to keep on getting better. And that £10 million or up to £10 million that Sunderland paid for him last summer is a snip. Let's be honest.
£10 million.
It was up to £10 million last summer. That's the agreement with Spurs.
Was it? Oh, bloody hell. I didn't realise it was that much. I was more taken aback by you counting Ian Robben as an old school winger. I didn't realise we've moved forward that much in time. When I'm thinking of old school wingers, I'm thinking of Stanley Matthews.
Wow.
But that's beyond the point, Justin. With Jack Clarke, he's just a wonderful player. I remember when he was at Tottenham and he was being loaned out to various clubs like QPR and Stoke, he didn't look anything special at all, did he? And it seemed like his early potential at Leeds may have been something of a false dawn, but since going to Sunderland, he's been getting better and better at an incredible rate that's shown no signs of stopping. Last season alone, he was fantastic, but this season, he's been a completely different beast. If we had to award Player of the Season after 9 games, for me, it's 100% going to Jack Clarke. He's the best winger in the division for me. And the frightening thing is he's still only 22. Easy to forget because I think I've said it before. It feels like he's been around for a lot longer than he has been. But 22 years old, and if he continues to get better at the rate he is, then, God, he is going to be an unbelievable player. Overall, Sunderland are looking like a well-rounded side now, aren't they? If young Mason Burstow can get going up front, then who knows how well they could do this season. Meanwhile, South Yorkshire police have arrested 2 men on suspicion of outraging public decency at this game. It's after a Sheffield Wednesday supporter mocked the death of 6-year-old Sunderland fan Bradley Lowry by showing a picture of him to the Sunderland fans on their phone during this game. I mean, how low can you possibly go? Coventry got back to winning ways by winning 3-1 away at QPR. 3-word review from Aaron: Sims has arrived. And this was more like it from Coventry. Want it. They had failed to win in their previous 6 prior to this, although they had undoubtedly been unlucky in a few of those games. It helps, though, that they're putting away chances and Ellis Sims got 2 here. Could it be the first of many for Simsy boy?
I don't see why not. Him being on the score sheet is an important factor, and whether he costs 3.5 million, 6 million or 8 million, whatever, it's a large chunk of money to spend, and it's a large burden for any forward, especially young, coming from the Premier League into Championship. It's a burden. It's a lot to shoulder, and then you've got your big shoes to fill in Victor Gyökeres. There's a lot of pressure there for Ellis Sims and Haji Wright for that matter. But him getting on the score sheet, and he's taken his goals really well. First one was a poacher's goal. Second one was well taken on his weaker foot. They are small examples of what Ellis Sims is capable of, and there's a lot more to his game than just scoring goals. His ability to play with his back to goal, etc. Link-up play is fantastic. There's so much more to come from him, and I'm hoping that this is the kickstart that he needs confidence-wise to get going, because I know a lot of Coventry fans have really started to question his ability. So hopefully, as I say, we'll say it again, this is the turning point.
Yeah, well, you definitely hope so, wouldn't you? I mean, there's a reason Coventry spent a lot of money on him, and other Championship sides were interested in doing so as well this summer. As you say, he just offers so much to a team in various different aspects, not just goals. And we saw at Sunderland last season how good he can be at this level, and that's why we were so excited when he signed. And look, it's a big ask, replacing Victor Gyökeres' goals, but he can definitely go some way to doing it. I was a bit surprised to see that in XG terms, he doesn't actually rank that highly, which would imply he's not really been getting the chances. Well, you could look at it 2 ways, really. He's not either getting the service or he's not in the right places. But now he's shown what he can do when those chances fall to him. And he needs to be firing as well, doesn't he? Because Haji Wright has certainly struggled a bit so far. So as long as one of them is firing the goals away this season, then that's all that will matter. Shout out as well for Ben Wilson, who pulled off an incredible save in the Coventry goal. That was absolutely unbelievable. 3-word review from Yusuf for QPR. Ainsworth out. Only needed 2 words. And from a QPR perspective, it is worth mentioning they had a stonewall penalty turned down. Absolutely no idea how that wasn't given for a foul on Sinclair Armstrong. Gareth Ainsworth also said the first Coventry goal was offside, which I've looked at it a couple of times. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with, but can definitely count himself unfortunate with that penalty. But QPR have now fallen into the bottom 3, just 2 wins from 9. And you've been somewhat of a Gareth Ainsworth apologist this season, Justin. How are you feeling about him now?
It's so hard to... I feel like he's blowing far too hot and cold at the moment, and maybe I am as well. Maybe I'm getting swooned by his charisma, like the rest of the UK, but not you, obviously. Look, results have been poor, but I will say this: I didn't think the players would buy into him. I think they have shown at times that they are. The first half against Coventry was okay. Second half was really poor, and there were some questionable decisions going against QPR, but that's besides the point. The numbers are working against Gareth Ainsworth here in his tenure so far at Loftus Road. Won just 5 of his 23, conceding almost 2 goals per game, scoring less than 1 per game on average. There needs to be a drastic improvement in results. It's hard to be convinced by him. It's hard to be convinced by his football because it's shown that it's not effective. You know, whatever perception QPR fans have of it, whether it's a positive outlook on his style of play or a negative, it's not working. It's as simple as that. And yeah, QPR... They're a weak side in terms of depth, and Gareth Ainsworth hasn't been able to get it to click just yet. So, yeah, can't apologise for him on this occasion because it was, not the greatest performance, and again, form-wise, not been great either.
Yeah, I think, in fairness, Ainsworth has learnt lessons from last season. Last season, he looked so out of his depth. This season, not so much, but they have still got a lot of problems. Their home form, in particular, is shocking. Justin, I don't know if you've seen this stat. They've only won 1 of their last 20 games at Loftus Road. Ainsworth has been in charge for 12 of them, so he's not completely to blame, but still a large chunk of those games. I think his direct style is much more suited to away games than home games, which, you know, fair enough if that's the case. But if you're not picking up some wins at home, then it's going to be difficult staying up. And at the end of the day, this squad should be doing better than it is, in my view. We've said a lot about how weak the squads are at Huddersfield, Rotherham and Wednesday. And while I do think QPR's squad is patchy, it's definitely better than those 3. Yet, here they are in the bottom 3, once again in danger, serious danger, of going down. And if the squad should be doing better, then it's the manager who's at fault, isn't it?
Well, that's it, isn't it? We spoke last week, didn't we, about how a good manager can get more out of a poor squad. I think the context of that conversation was Darren Moore going in at Huddersfield, and in terms of the squads, I would argue that out of those 4 sides, the teams with some of the lowest budgets in the division, other than the likes of Plymouth and Coventry, obviously, or Coventry of old, they should be doing better. They've got the better individual quality. They've got the likes of Elias Chair, Jimmy Dunn, Chris Willock. There's a lot of ability in this QPR side, and you are right. Ainsworth isn't finding a way to get it to click consistently. There are flashes, but it's not consistently enough to generate results that are going to pull you away from the bottom 3. And unfortunately, QPR are going to find themselves in a fight this season if he struggles, because I've not seen the best of Elias Chair. I've not seen the best of Chris Willock. Sinclair Armstrong's been decent, but other than that, there's not really much to really shout about at Loftus Road, unfortunately.
No, there definitely isn't. And I think, unfortunately, and of course, we're not calling for the Ainsworth sacking by any means, but you do get a sense that another manager would get more out of this team, because it's not entirely different to the one that was doing quite well under Mick Beale this time last year, is it? So with that being said, something's got to change, otherwise QPR, it's going to be a long, hard season for them, isn't it? Cardiff made it 4 league wins on the bounce by beating Rotherham 2-0. You may recall, listener, that there was a big hoo-ha last season about Cardiff v Rotherham getting abandoned mid-game because of torrential rain while Cardiff were ahead, which is why it was great to hear the Cardiff PA system playing Singing in the Rain before this one. It's just great banter. It really is. The Common Bluebird gave this 3-word review. Errol is something special. Oliver says playoff Bluebirds, and Welsh Mafia says starting to believe. And it's been a remarkable run by Cardiff, hasn't it? They're now in the top 6 with these 4 straight wins, which is something I never expected. Justin, I will be honest.
Let's state the obvious. I feel like I should let you take the floor on this one, mainly because I've recognised the quality in form and praised Cardiff over the last few weeks. I have been a little bit sceptical at times. Maybe they don't create as much as I think they should, but yeah, I think Cardiff fans should hear from you rather than me on praise. Unless you don't have it, then by right, please be quiet.
I don't recall you ever really being too full of praise for Cardiff, Justin, but I may be completely wrong on that. I don't recall you.
Maybe it's you being so negative that my neutrality on the situation maybe comes across as more positive than it maybe is.
I'm not sure about that. What I'll say is Errol Bullock deserves so much credit for this start. I don't think anyone knew too much about him when he came in, but he has done brilliantly. They've been resolute. He's happy to mix up the way they've been playing, and they've had a couple of results which have gone their way, despite their back being against the wall for large parts of the game. But in the results which haven't gone their way, they've been competitive and given a good account of themselves. So he has done a marvellous job so far. I will 100% admit that. I struggle to see Cardiff maintaining it, mainly because I don't think the squad is that strong. I'm still very much sticking to my guns on a bottom half finish. We're not even a quarter way into the season, so a lot can change, and Cardiff can by all means prove me wrong on the flip side of that. But ultimately, I was worried about them being in danger of going down at the start of the season, and that is miles off now. I just don't see that being the case now, because Bullock clearly has his head screwed on.
Yeah, I would agree with you in parts. I think their attack, for me, there's a lot of really good individuals in their attack, or individuals that have had really good season in the Championship that maybe mask over where they're at now, the likes of Carl, Grant, Yaku Mete, for example. Don't get me wrong, they're good players. I just don't know whether they're consistent enough to push Cardiff into that top 8, top 6 stratosphere that they might go. I think defensively they're good enough, they're resolute enough. They surprise me. They don't concede as many chances as previous Cardiff teams have. And as you pointed out, Bullock has the ability to mix them up as well, which is a real positive in the division. I think it's just the attack that needs refining a little bit, because I think there's more to get out of it, and I think that there's a lot more quality to tap into. But again, new manager, new squad, going to take time. So yeah, I'm quite optimistic about Cardiff. Don't know whether a top 6 push is realistic, but defensively, if they maintain it and they do tap into the attacking potential of that team, I don't think you can not rule it out, but there'll be a question mark at some point in the season.
Didn't you say this time last week that your expectations for Cardiff have not changed at all, and now you've suddenly gone that top 6 is a possibility?
I've not said top 6 is a possibility. I just said that there'll be a question mark at some point in the season about Cardiff being in the playoff conversation.
It seems like you've changed your tone quite quickly all of a sudden. Out of interest, Justin, because I'm still very much of the opinion that I think they'll finish bottom half this season. I think they've done fantastically well in this run, and they 100% deserve credit for that, but I just can't see it lasting at all. So with that being said, where are you looking for them?
I would look at the mid-table as a mid-table side. It really does depend on whether or not they can get more out of their attack. I think defensively they're going to be good enough to be a top half team. It's just whether or not attacking wise they can be a top half team. I think that's the thing that's going to let them down at various points in the season. They've shown glimpses of. I mean, you look at this Rotherham game. Sorry, it didn't have to create an awful lot. Rotherham were poor, but Cardiff didn't create an awful lot. So yeah, I think there's more potential there, but I think they're going to let them down at some point or in various games this season. So I'd say mid-table would be a realistic push for Cardiff this season.
Okay, that's fair enough, I suppose. I do agree with you. I think the attack is going to be something that does hold them back quite a lot this season. The only thing that worries me is Cardiff being very Cardiff and pressing the self-destruct button, because it does happen, unfortunately, as Cardiff fans have seen quite a few times over the past 2 or 3 seasons. So it wouldn't surprise me if that happens again. But admittedly, the first 10 games, or 9 games rather, have been really, really good. Rotherham remain second from bottom, stuck on 5 points. Justin, we've started to shine a light on it recently, but I feel like if it wasn't for Wednesday being abysmal, we'd be talking a lot more about Rotherham. It amazes me that Rotherham fans are coming at us with the old, you've got an agenda against us line. Have they not seen how they've been playing? It's just so poor, isn't it? Could that mean that Matt Taylor's job is in danger? Because it doesn't look like it's getting any better anytime soon.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I think objectively, yes, they look poor in games and offered absolutely nothing once again for the 3rd, 4th game running. And like you pointed out, Millers fans are telling me that they've had good spells in games, but sadly, as many will point out, the only thing that matters are results, and Rotherham have won one of the last 5, which has seen them sink to the bottom 3. But for me, Taylor is the right man. Subjectively, I do like him. I do think he's got the right methodology, but it's a results-based game, and if he continues to get poor results, he's going to be under pressure. He's going to be under pressure from himself. And I don't think the squad is good enough. There'll be a lot of people in South Yorkshire disagreeing with that statement, but it's quite simple. The squad isn't good enough to compete. So it's how competitive Rotherham are. But at the moment, they haven't been competitive in games. They've been really, really poor. They've barely offered anything going forwards, other than from set pieces. Again, there'll be some fans disagreeing with that, but that has been the only source of chances, which just shines a light on how blunt they've been in open play as well.
Well, you say Rotherham fans will say that you're wrong, Justin, but you're not. You're absolutely not wrong. And if anyone says that you're wrong, they're wrong. Because Rotherham have been awful so far. There's no 2 ways about it. And I'm kind of in 2 minds over what the main cause of the blame here is, because Matt Taylor's tactics are not particularly inspiring. The plan is essentially get the ball into the box, see what happens. That's it. They're creating very little in each game and are being dominated. At the same time, though, this squad is really poor. And it's a tight one between them and Rotherham them and Huddersfield, for the worst squad in the division. So he hasn't got a lot to work with. I think he's a good young manager, did a good job last season, and I do think he will go on to be a good Championship manager. But they're not going to stay up unless something changes. That means he has to either figure out something to make them play a lot better, or someone else gets a go at the job. Simple as that, really, isn't it? We've now covered the 3 teams currently in the bottom 3, Justin. It's the 3 teams we actually predicted to go down at the start of the season. So for you, as things stand, are you thinking it's that current bottom 3 to go down? What do you think?
I just look at QPR and I think, your squad, you've got enough to stay up once injuries subside. They've got really good individuals. Jake Clarke-Salter, Jimmy Dunn, there's Steve Cook, there's Jack Colback, some good experienced players, Begovic, and you've got the star quality in Elias Chair and Chris Willock. So you look at that and you go, you should be punching a lot higher than you are. But I don't have enough faith in Gareth Ainsworth to get that team to click in a way that it needs to click, if that makes sense. I don't think the style of play is good enough to get the best out of certain individuals. Rotherham on Wednesday is an easy one, but it's just whether or not Ainsworth finds a way to make QPR click and other teams drop in. But I look at other teams. Middlesbrough are down there, Swansea are down there, Watford are down there. They're going to stay in and around the bottom 3 for much longer. I don't think they are. So again, it does make it harder to make a case for QPR getting out of that bottom 3.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? For me, it's going to be 3 of Wednesday, Rotherham, QPR and Huddersfield. It seems ridiculous to narrow it down, the relegation battle, to just 4 teams so early in the season, but I simply cannot see anyone else going down unless someone has a cataclysmic collapse, which is a possibility, by the way. See QPR last season. I just can't see anyone else getting dragged into it. Obviously, very difficult to see Wednesday staying up with their circumstances on and off the pitch. Rotherham have been playing so badly that there'll have to be a huge upturn for them to have any chance of staying up. As things stand, I'm struggling to decipher between Huddersfield and QPR, but I'd probably just give Huddersfield the nudge because I think they've got the better manager, but that could change in a few months' time if Ainsworth gets the sack or what have you. So I imagine there will be the odd team having a flirt during the season, but I ultimately think there's bound to be at least 3 worse teams than any of the other sides in the division. And again, it seems ridiculous narrowing the relegation battle to just 4 teams after 9 games, Justin, but I just seriously cannot see anyone else going down.
Yeah, I really want to point out as well that Huddersfield, out of those 4 teams, are probably the most likely side to make vast improvements in January because of resource, because of just resource really. They seem to be the team most likely to add to their squad in January, or recruit better in January, I should say. So yeah, it's hard to make a case for the other 3, but like you said, cataclysmic drop-offs, it can happen.
It absolutely can. Justin, let's take a quick break. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. Middlesbrough have now won back-to-back games. After their slow start, they picked up a 3-2 win away at Watford. Sedgefield's 3-word review: belief and momentum. They're finally getting some luck, aren't they, after a rough opening 7 games. Have they now turned the corner, Justin, or are they turning a corner, or are they even just indicating to turn a corner?
It's a really good analogy. I think they're just indicating. Carrick's checked the mirrors. He's going to make sure he's not going to knock off a cyclist, and he's just started to indicate. Jeremy Vine, a cyclist, being that, we all know what can happen if that happens. But I do still think they concede a large number of chances. So whilst results are turning, performance for me still need to pick up, and this game is a good microcosm of the issues that they do face and some of the quality that they've got as well. But it does help when you've got players in form. Josh Coburn is one who really impressed me in this game. Sure. He scored his own shot on goal, but his last few starts have given me the reassurance that he's the ideal man leading the line. And Riley McGree as well, in great form. I think he's got 7 goal contributions this season already. Got 9 last season, so there's a lot of quality there.
Yeah, absolutely. And as excellent as these 2 wins are, Borough have been very open at the back, haven't they? The results against Southampton and Watford could have been very different on another day, but they weren't, and Borough are starting to look a bit more like the side from last season. Started to play with a confidence, and chances are actually finding the back of the net. As we've been saying, they haven't been playing badly, they've just not been scoring, and Josh Coburn coming into the team has been fantastic. He's like a new signing, I suppose, isn't he? And getting his first goal, could see him scoring quite a few. Riley McGree has showed he can score all types of goals. If they tighten up at the back, they'll fly up the table, but even then they could do that just by outscoring teams like they did last season. So either way, I fully expect Borough to be getting on their merry way up the table. It is worth mentioning Lewis O'Brien went off injured. Michael Carrick's admitted he's faring the worst on that one, so not ideal there. Ben's 3-word review for Watford. Relegation battle incoming. Maybe a bit overdramatic, Ben, but it's certainly not been ideal, has it, for Watford so far? Since there were reports of Valérien Ismaël getting a new contract, Watford have won 1 point from 3 games. They're 20th with just 2 wins on the board. It would be so Watford to go from nearly giving a manager a new contract to sacking him in the space of 2 weeks, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. I mean, Watford are like that partner anyway. They can change at the flip of a switch. You're one bad way of phrasing something from getting dumped, and that's just how Watford are. So if you're asking me,
Says a lot about your relationships, Justin, in the past.
Oh yeah, choose them well. I honestly do think Watford will come good under Valérien Ismaël. I think the frustrating thing is we'll never know how they would have fared under Rob Edwards because he was sacked too early. And statistically, this season Watford have been good. Yes, Ismaël made some mistakes in the game yesterday against Middlesbrough, but he's going to take risks, and it didn't pay off on this occasion. But you look at the chances they did create. Bayo had some really, really big chances. He spooned a shot over the bar, which he should have put away. Had a really good header at another point. They had some really good moments, and I just think this squad is evolving. He's trying to find a way that he can implement what he wants, that is right for the players at his disposal. It's going to take time, and I think if sacking him is just going to put them back into this vicious circle that is impossible or near impossible to get out of. So yeah, if performances are garbage, get rid, but they aren't. They're okay. They're going somewhere. Just don't be rash. That's all I'm going to say.
I completely agree, Justin. I don't think they've really been playing badly at all. Most of their games have actually been pretty close, obviously excluding the Leeds game, but Leeds were on another level that day. Look, I don't think the squad is completely suited to him, and he's working with what he's got, although it obviously should be doing better considering the talent that's in it. The thing is, while I wasn't a massive fan of the Ishmael appointment, I think they should stick with him. I don't think hiring and firing managers is the way forward anymore for Watford. I would much prefer them sticking with Ishmael than going through another 3 managers this season. But ultimately, if they lose their 2 games this coming week, he probably will be sacked because it's Watford and that's just how they roll.
Well, that's it, isn't it? That's what I mean. You're one bad phrase away from getting dumped, or one bad way of phrasing something from getting dumped with Watford. It's as simple as that. It's a volatile ownership, and that's the reputation that they've gained. And if you're not in top form all the time, then yes, you are going to be in trouble. It's a really, really bad situation to have developed for yourselves. They are an implosion sort of club, and unfortunately, they've not recovered from the last few.
Leicester remain top of the Championship after beating Blackburn 4-1 on Sunday afternoon. Leicester have now matched the Championship record for the best start after 9 games. Only Sheffield United in 2005-06 had previously picked up 24 points or more. The scary thing is, they're not even at top gear, Justin. They've got gears to go, haven't they? And that's just so plainly obvious because despite winning 8 out of 9 games, I don't think we've particularly had a performance yet where I've gone, wowee, they look unbelievable. And that's a scary thought. I don't mean that as a criticism at all. I mean, I just expect this Leicester team to get even better because it still feels so early on in the Enzo Maresca era. But the talent they've got is some of the best we've ever seen at this level. I mean, Jamie Vardy may be knocking on a bit, but that goal for him was just... It's something that they should show to strikers. The movement off the ball and then being able to finish like that so quickly was just astonishing. And then Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall was fantastic indeed. I mean, Wout Faes at the back, he cost a fair bit of money when Leicester brought him, so you'd expect him to be an unbelievable player, but I think he showed it here that he is just... he's way too good for this level, and so many other players are way too good at this level, Justin. And unfortunately, I say unfortunately because it's not very entertaining for us. I could see Leicester going, well, they're top of the Championship now, clear of Ipswich, who were joint on points with them before. I can see Leicester going off at a bit of a canter now.
Well, when you've got the quality that they've got, you can afford to just be okay in a game and then have an incredible 5 minutes, and you're going to punish your team because you've got that quality to do it. And that's all Leicester seem to be doing in the games. And again, it's not a criticism. Yeah, Maresca's put a system in place that gets the best out of the individuals because they have their moments, they take them. And you can't really say that for many of the teams in the division, mainly because they don't have that quality. But Southampton have struggled to do it, Leeds have struggled to do it, Leicester have done it. Simple. And I think the key thing here is you quite rightly point out they're in first or second gear. They're putting another car analogy, but they're putting their foot down on the clutch and they're putting it to first, and they're just rolling at the moment. They're not really accelerating, and I think that's the frightening thing is they can dismantle a decent Blackburn team who are a decent side. I know results have gone against them, but they do play well. Dismantled them with looked like relative ease at times, and I think that's the quality that just this team has got. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's kind of like you've got all these different cars lined up at a starting line, and you've got Leeds who are, a Lamborghini or something like that, and then I'm getting back on the car analogies, and then Ipswich are some other fancy car, and you've got Leicester who are just ultimately an F1 car, aren't they? And as long as they're driven very well by Enzo Maresca, who's in that seat, they're going to absolutely tank the league. And I think we also should give Maresca a lot of credit because he has done so well in making everything come together. And 8 wins from 9 is just a phenomenal start for them, but it's looking very good for Leicester so far, isn't it? Swansea have got back-to-back wins after previously being winless this season. They won 3-0 away at Millwall. A cracking result for Michael Duff, massively relieves the pressure on him. But a 3-word review here from Al, who says, same old shit. CO says, Gary Rowett out. And I wanted to discuss Millwall, Justin, because we haven't really spoken about them yet, but just 3 wins to their name. They're the second lowest scorers in the league. Only Sheffield Wednesday have scored fewer goals than them. It's not been a great start, has it?
Yeah, not the best for me after I've become such a big Rowett advocate as well. It's being spat in the face on that one. It's hugely disappointing and worrying as well because they look fragile. I know you've mentioned the goals, but defensively in key moments they just look slow and lethargic. They don't have the energy I expected them to have in games. I thought recruitment-wise they did pretty decent in the summer, with exception to bringing in a striker. But they look vulnerable, and that's been a constant positive you can rely on saying about Millwall under Gary Rowett. And if Gary Rowett's teams aren't defensively responsible, shall we say, where do they go? Because they've never been great going forwards. So if they're conceding goals, what can you get out of it from a Gary Rowett side? Not much. So it does put him under pressure. And I've seen a lot of Millwall fans turn over the last sort of 3-4 months, especially the way last season ended, and then going into this season, that form's not improved. That usually gets managers to sack, and it'll be a massive shame because Gary Rowett's taken his team a great distance. But the question is now, has he taken them as far as he can? Do they need to find somebody else to tap into this decent team? It's a good team, Millwall, and I just don't think Gary Rowett is putting the things in place that will make his team click.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on, Justin. We've kind of gotten used to Millwall not being the most free-scoring side in the world, but always defensively sound. So far, they've been even less free-scoring than usual and worryingly open at the back. Only one of their last 7 games have they conceded an XG of less than 1, and that was against Rotherham at home, which is turning out to be quite an easy task. So it's a slow start, and they've been poorer than their results suggest, in my view. I don't think they've been helped by things like Ryan Leonard having to fill in at the back, and going forward, Ian Fleming's not shown the same form from last season. However, I think it is a fair question to ask. Has Gary Rowett taken his team as far as he can? Been in charge for 4 years now, and each season they've challenged for the playoffs, not got there. And you look at it, they're probably in exactly the same kind of position that they were when he took over, I think, aren't they? Basically, they've not taken that next step, is the long short of it, and you'd have thought another manager might be able to do that. That's all I'll say on that. Preston lost for the first time this season. They were beaten 4-0 at home by West Brom. I mean, that's some way to lose your unbeaten run, isn't it? If we're being frank, Preston were awful. I have no idea where this performance came from. Their results have been better than their performances this season, but even this was uncharacteristically shocking. Let's chuck some praise on West Brom, though, Justin, who were great. We've spoken a lot about turning points in this episode. Could this be one for them?
Maybe. I certainly think Corbrand's got the potential to tap into it, but I think the things that clicked in this game was it was the perfect away performance. Let's arch it with that. It was a perfect away performance because they nullified Preston. Preston didn't create a lot. I think they had 2 chances, one from bad parts. Can't remember who else had the other one. But they created 2 chances, and that was really it. And West Brom were clinical. And that's not something we've been able to say for West Brom since Bilic was in charge in the 2019-20 season when they looked convincing going forwards. They've not looked convincing going forwards since because they miss a boatload of chances almost every week. But this game, they were clinical. It was good. I mean, even Darnell Furlong's getting on the goals, and his goal was fantastic, by the way. Daisy Cutter is a definition. But as far as turning points go, I don't think it is a turning point because West Brom have been cruising in a positive way. They've been chipping away at results, and it's just results like this that just, because it's so convincing and so significant, being a 4-0 away win, it turns your attention to it. But I think West Brom have been good this season. Not massive, not brilliant by any means, but they've been good, and they've played way beyond my expectations because I expected them to struggle, especially in the initial stages. But they're sitting in 8th and scoring a lot more goals than, again, I expected them to.
Yeah, and the thing is, this West Brom team is full of players who are extremely talented. Jed Wallace, John Swift, Alex Marrett, Gray, Dean Garner. All of those guys in the time that we've been doing this podcast have been some of the best players in the division at a point, haven't they? Mm-hmm. And it's not like they're over the hill. All those guys who I just mentioned are mid to late 20s. The only issue is it seems to have fallen flat for some reason in recent times. But if they just start playing their best football again all at once, West Brom could be a team to fear, especially when you throw in the likes of Matt Phillips and Cal Bartley, Okay Kuzlu, etc. So if Carlos Corbrand gets them believing in the project, they could have quite an exciting season. They will need to play better than they did prior to the Preston game, but it's entirely plausible for them to do something impressive this season. Darren Moore has now got as many points in the Championship this season as Sheffield Wednesday after he drew his second game in charge against Ipswich. 1-1 it finished. That stat is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Justin, you want to throw some praise at Huddersfield striker Delano Bergzorg?
Yeah, absolutely. I think his skill in hold-up play is exactly what this Huddersfield team needs. He's got plenty of technical ability as well. Decision-making can be a little bit poor at times, but for me, I think you look at it, the way he took his goal, you don't see many forwards confidently hit it into the goalkeeper's near post. So I think if Darren Moore's going to tap into anyone in that team, it's got to be Bergzorg, because I think he can be the difference maker going in that final third going forwards, because it's not a convincing front lineup, is it? Like Danny Ward, Josh Koroma, Keane Harrett. It's not built on quality, and I think Bergzorg can bring that. So I think if he can refine some parts of his game and really excel in the areas he is good at, like his skill, his technical quality, then Huddersfield will tap into him and he'll get goals. And he's come from nowhere really as well. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, he has come from nowhere, and I have been impressed with him. He does look like a big threat, doesn't he, up front for QPR. Even though his name does sound like a character from Star Wars, I have been impressed with him, and I think he's going to be a really important player for Huddersfield. Norwich bounced back from their battering against Plymouth by beating Birmingham 2-0. Rumpus Schools, 3-word review for Norwich. We're on a title charge, Dilksy. Technically more than 3 words. But much better than Norwich. Not sure if that's necessarily the Plymouth results out and in the rearview mirror or not, but we'll wait and see with that. Don't think it's any surprise, though, that the main man here was Gabriel Sara. He was unbelievable once again. And judging from this season, I'm kind of getting the sense that his performances could dictate how Norwich do. So far, it seems to be if Gabriel Sara plays well, Norwich play well. If he doesn't, then they don't and offer very little. Well,
that's the key thing. He's a gifted footballer, and he's taken some flack in recent weeks because some of his defending has been pretty poor, and right so. But his quality going forward is very easy to see. He's been one of the most creative midfielders in the division. So if Norwich are going to thrive going forward, it's probably because Gabriel Sara is at the centre of good things going forward. So again, if he's out of the game, if an opposition can mark him out of a game, and I think that's going to be a key tactic going forward. You look at Birmingham's midfield; they could have done a lot better with Gabriel Sara in this fixture. But again, if you can mark him out of the game, and Norwich are not going to have much of an impact. So yeah, he's a gifted footballer, a talented player, and as I say, if you can take him out of the game, then Norwich are going to drop off because they don't have that Josh Sargent figure up front either. But yeah, he's got plenty of quality, and we see it week in, week out.
Yeah, he is undeniably he's an unbelievable player, and I think probably should be playing in the Premier League based off what we've seen from him in the past, well, this calendar year really. The only concern would be is who else is going to do something if he has an off day. And so far we haven't seen much from Norwich, have they? I don't want to call them a one-man team, but so far it looks like they're as close to a one-man team as you can possibly be, because I don't think they necessarily exist, but when you've got one player who has just so much more influence pulling the strings and what have you as he does, then that's a bit of a concern. But I suppose it doesn't matter if Norwich keep winning games, does it? Stoke ended a run of 1 point from 5 games by winning 3-2 away at Bristol City. 3-word review from Charlie for Bristol City. Fucking bottled it. Fair enough. Mehdi Leris scored an absolute beauty here for Stoke. Also good to see, was it Nathan Lowe, the young lad, 18-year-old, scored the winner. That was a nice scene. And finally, Hull and Plymouth drew 1-1. Ryan's a Plymouth fan, and his 3-word review was well-earned point. And I'm not going to disagree with him on that. Now it's time for this. Oh, God. Yes, it's time for the news. Sheffield Wednesday owner Dejphon Chansiri has released yet another lengthy statement, and boy oh boy, was it a doozy. He says that he will not put any more money into the club because he's unhappy with the treatment he's been getting from some fans. A quick summary of what he said: I am the one who saved the club and spent the money for the club. I'm the one who needs to pay around $2 million on average every month. Some fans need to have more respect for owners of clubs and not be so selfish, thinking of their own benefit without doing anything good to the club. Those fans who create trouble to the club and myself believe that they are the real owner of the club. They need to be responsible for the financial matters of the club from now on. It's clearly just Carlton Palmer's fault, isn't it, really, Justin? I got to tell you, when I got a notification from Sheffield Wednesday Twitter saying a statement from Dejphon Chansiri, I thought, oh no, not again. And it's got to be the most jaw-dropping statement we've ever seen in the Championship. I can't think of anything that could possibly come close. He has completely thrown his toys out the pram, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's a giant man baby. And man babies are hard to talk to. Man babies are hard to deal with. It's impossible. I don't know what to say, because everyone can make an easy conclusion to this, that Chansiri is just a massive tosser. It's as simple as that. There are owners who are just downright bad. You got De Jong doing a really bad job at Reading. The club is on the brink, etc. But then you've got Chansiri, who's a terrible owner, but he's still paying the bills. But he's using that as a weapon against the fans, which is entirely unfair and irresponsible. And that's a key thing here. That does make you think that further regulations need to be put in place, so you don't get this situation. I do laugh, but it's a laugh in despair, that you don't get a situation where owners are using the money they spend on the club as a form of blackmail against the supporters, because that's what it's coming across as. If you don't stop making trouble, I'm going to stop putting money into the club. You can't. There are people's jobs at stake here at the football club. These are community assets. You just cannot use it as a weapon. It's ridiculous. It's implausible. And like I said, conclusively, he's a man baby, not a single self-respecting, grown-up adult human being does not put this sort of statement out. Simple as that. He's an idiot.
I'm not going to disagree with you just now. I think the real victims here are Sheffield Wednesday's PR team, who are trying their best, and their boss ruins all their hard work instantly. I can't believe there's an owner of a football club who is just so narcissistic and petulant as Dejphon Chansiri. You're the owner of a football club, and while I don't condone abuse, you're going to get stick, especially when you make as many poor decisions as he does. It's so incredibly petulant. Him not putting any more money into the club is effectively the same as a child taking their ball and going home. It is exactly the same as that. He contradicts himself so much throughout the statement as well. If there was a drinking game for every time he contradicts himself in that statement, we would all be absolutely smashed. I also like the bit where he effectively said, well, if you guys love the club so much, you run it. We weren't all born with a very wealthy dad like you, Dejphon. It's not like you went out there and made the money yourself. So there's just so many elements to this, Justin. We could honestly do a whole episode on this statement alone. Ultimately, he's totally avoiding all blame here when everything that's going wrong with Wednesday, whether it's results on the pitch or the financial state of the club, it's all because of Dejphon Chansiri, and he's taking no blame for it whatsoever. I suppose the question now, Justin, is what next for Sheffield Wednesday?
I don't know, because he doesn't come across like he wants to sell. He petulantly say he will sell, but only if a bid comes in. But he's riddled the club with debt because of how poorly he's run the club. I think the only thing I could suggest to Wednesday fans is, be outspoken with it. Do it respectfully, but be outspoken and make your feelings known. You've only got to look at the Sunderland game and how empty the Kop was. Fans are turning themselves away because they don't want to deal with this. No one wants to be apathetic towards the football club, but Chansiri has turned it into this sour apple that no one wants to chew from. As simple as that. It is a terrible place to be, and honestly, I don't know, because like I said, he's a man baby. You can't deal with man babies. It's impossible. You can only expect him to get bored and sell. That's the only way this concludes, I think.
Yeah. If there's one positive to take from all this, I would say the chances of Chansiri owning Wednesday this time next year are low. He seems to be at his wit's end, and if a buyer comes along with a reasonable offer, he's going to sell, because it doesn't seem like he cares much anymore. Having said that, it's going to get worse at Wednesday before it gets better. I would say there's a strong possibility they'll go into administration this year. Chansiri says he's putting $2 million in the club each month to keep it going. Completely his fault that he's having to do that in the first place, I might add. And so if he's genuinely not putting in any more money, the debts are going to quickly pile up. So that's one thing. And you'd also say their slim chances of staying up are now even slimmer. There's a huge question to be asked about Isco Munoz. Very hard to argue that he doesn't deserve to lose his job at this point, but will the club pay compensation to him if the owner isn't putting in any more money in? I assume not. So it sounds like Isco may be staying for the foreseeable unless something gets worked out there. So I think this statement means Wednesday are currently in a tunnel, which is only going to get darker and gloomier, but there is a faint light at the end of it, because hopefully it means in a year's time Sheffield Wednesday will be done with Dejphon Chansiri and they can move forward as a football club. It's a small glimmer, and it's going to be a rough road ahead, but I can see some signs of positivity, I think. Let's do the polls, Justin. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So the first question we asked was this. And it relates to the bottom 3 conversation we had earlier on in the show, Justin. The bottom 3 currently is Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham and QPR. Will that be the bottom 3 come the end of the season? Yes or no?
It's hard to argue against it, so I'm going to say yes.
I would say yes. Can see Huddersfield, maybe having a say in that, but at the moment I'd probably put those 3 down personally. 57% of people said yes, 43% said no. Not really any other suggestions from the listeners on that one. Who has been the player of the season so far? Jack Clarke, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, Gabriel Sara, Morgan Whittaker.
Morgan Whittaker or KDH? I'll go with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall.
Not Jack Clarke?
Yeah, but I just feel like you're gonna say him, so I may as well give you the accolade for that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'd definitely say Jack Clarke. 43% of people said him, 39% said Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, 10% said Morgan Whittaker, 8% said Gabriel Sara. I feel like the other two have been a bit harshly done there, particularly Sara. And finally, egg and cress sandwiches. Yes, no, honestly don't care.
I honestly don't care. I'll have one if it's available, but they're flavourless, they're bland, and they're just there to fill a void, really.
Yeah. This is following on from our conversation in midweek about egg and cress sandwiches being the second most popular sandwich in Britain, which is absolutely mind-blowing because that is just so plain, isn't it? Honestly, you may as well just have a cheese sandwich. At least you're getting something out of that. There's a bit of flavour in there. Anyway, 53% of people said no to egg and cress sandwiches. 30% said yes. 17% said, honestly, I don't care. And that's completely fine. Now it's time for this.
Hi, Simon Grayson here.
Yes, it's time for Simon Grayson's Hateful Eight. So I'm going to ask Justin to name 8 of a certain subject. All he's got to do is name all 8. So, for example, if I would say name Steve Bruce's last 8 clubs, he would say Villa, that's 1 down, then Newcastle, that's another down. But if Justin were to say Weymouth, he would lose a life. So all he needs to do is give me all 8 answers. Justin, this week, Simon Grayson has given you 3 lives. And the question is this. Name for me the 8 most northern clubs in the EFL. Not the Premier League, the EFL. Nice. Now, Justin, I'll give you a clue on this because it is tricky, and I know geography isn't your strongest subject. Why are you pulling that face?
You don't know what my strongest subject is.
Well, you have this season said Southampton was in Dorset, and I believe at the end of last season you didn't know Watford was in Hertfordshire.
I've also said Devonshire and Humbershire as well. Yes. So that's a fair point.
I'm glad you've rode back on that opinion straight away. The clue is this. Only 2 of these 8 clubs are in the Championship. So keep that in mind. Justin, can you name for me one of the most northern clubs in the EFL?
Barrow.
Barrow is correct. That's the 4th most northern in the EFL.
Shit.
That's 1 down.
Carlisle.
Yes, Carlisle is just marginally the most northern club in the EFL. Very nice place as well. Well, Lake District is. Next one, Justin.
Sunderland.
Sunderland is correct. The most northern side in the Championship. That's 3 down, Justin. 5 to go.
5 to go. I feel like I've tapped into the most northern clubs, but there's a second one, isn't there, that I'm missing?
Another Championship side, yes.
That's tricky. Now I'm stumbling. I'm going to go with Bradford's quite high up in Yorkshire. I'm going to go with Bradford.
Bradford is incorrect. It's just fractionally less north of the team, which is number 8. So you've lost one life. You have 5 to go, Justin.
Hull's quite far up.
But not far enough up, Justin. So that's another life gone. I can't believe you've not got the other championship side at the very least. You've got 5 remaining. You've got 1 life left already.
Middlesbrough, then?
Yes, of course it's Middlesbrough.
There's just this long-going debate whether or not Middlesbrough is in the North East or Yorkshire. And I don't know.
It's in Yorkshire. But it's also North East. So you've got the top 4 most northern clubs. Now, Middlesbrough are the 3rd most northern. You've got 4 to go. You've got 1 life left.
Got 4 to go.
All in League 1 and League 2, I will point out.
Yeah, that's tricky. I thought Bradford was really high up, but it isn't. I'll throw in... I genuinely cannot think of any more clubs. Harrogate's between Leeds and Barnsley, I think. This is actually really hard. It's really hard.
Just say anyone.
But I can't think of anyone.
I'm going to have to push it for
north.
time, Justin.
Blackpool.
Blackpool's correct. That's the 8th most northern club. So there you go. You've got the benchmark now. You've got 3 remaining.
Now, I can't remember if Fleetwood's below Blackpool or above it, or vice versa with Morecambe. I'm going to go with Morecambe.
Morecambe is correct. That's the 5th most northern club. What a turnaround this could be. Go on, Justin.
You say Blackpool's 8th, right?
Correct.
Oh, so I'm not
2 remaining.
I'm not going to throw Fleetwood in. Where's Preston? Go Preston.
I will save you because
No. Yeah, championship.
No championship clubs. Ignore that. Everyone ignore that.
I'll go on then, Fleetwood.
Fleetwood is correct. That's the 7th most northern club. Oh, Justin, you've got 1 more remaining. And I tell you what, I don't want to give it away, but you have mentioned them.
Harrogate.
Harrogate's correct. He's done it, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why you thought it was between Leeds and Barnsley, because that's not correct. It's not north of Leeds. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I had absolutely no hope for you when you were on a 3 correct. So that is insane. Justin Peach, with his abysmal geography, has managed to get Simon Grayson take for late. Justin, how do you feel?
Yeah, I'm absolutely jubilated about that. I nearly avoided Fleetwood because I just didn't know where it was in relation to Morecambe and Blackpool, but now I know.
Literally just above it.
Yeah, tiny. It's like 4 miles away, isn't it?
Yeah. Incredible scenes here on Simon Grayson Take for Late, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. This has been the Second Tier Podcast, and we'll be back again on Thursday because we've got midweek games, baby. So we're going to talk about all the games that happen in midweek in the Championship. So we look forward to chatting about them with you then. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a huge thank you for listening.